In this video, we're going to be comparing Grand Prairie to Mansfield. Which one's a better fit? Well, stay tuned to find out. Hey, if this is your first time to the channel, welcome, glad to meet you. My name is Wendy Pinnell. I am a local real estate broker here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. If you want to know everything there is to know about living in Dallas, Texas, or any one of its many suburbs, including where we are today, which is both Grand Prairie and Mansfield, be sure to hit that subscribe button and click on that little bell. We've been in the business since 2007, helping buyers and sellers just like you. And today, we're going to do a tour around Grand Prairie and Mansfield and do a comparison, see which one is a better fit for you. All right, so something you need to know about Grand Prairie. It is twice as big as Mansfield, and it's 2 times more populated. So you might be like, Wendy, why are you trying to compare something that has nothing in common, right? If one is so much bigger than the other. Well, there's a good reason for that. They both have a lot of housing opportunities. And in a time when housing is scarce and there's a shortage going on, what a great way to show you what's available out here in the South Dallas area. Another reason I wanted to do this comparison is that, Grand Prairie is a very large city and it's kind of shaped like a rectangle, or might even say like a finger. Okay, it's long and slender, and it's very different. Grand Prairie started up in the north, right along I-30, and as it grew, it developed southward, right? So as you go further south into Grand Prairie, you're gonna see it become newer and newer and newer. So you start like in the 40s, 50s, 60s, it's like you descend right by the decade. Well, that's what you're gonna see in this South Grand Prairie side, and I wanted to show you today is that South Grand Prairie is very much like Mansfield. It's very new and shiny, and in fact, in a minute, I'm gonna show you some footage of both Grand Prairie and Mansfield, and you're gonna see that you can't even tell the difference. They both look like the exact same city. So my mission today, I wanted to show you, compare Grand Prairie as a whole to Mansfield, but also kind of help you see that South Grand Prairie side is very much like Mansfield. But okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. So tell you what, we're gonna wrap it up here. I'm gonna show you a little bit of footage, and then we're gonna head on off to our next stop. So let's go. Well, we are out here at the Frontier STEM Academy, and tell you what, let's jump in on our comparison tour by talking about something incredibly important, which is education. Now, if we look at the big picture view of niche.com, we're going to see that Grand Prairie scores a B and Mansfield scores an A. But if we want to dig a little deeper, take a trip over to greatschools.org. Great Schools does a range from 1 to 10, and anything 7 or above is considered above average. All right, so if we, take a look and compare there, we're gonna find out that Grand Prairie has 59 public schools, and of those 59, 20 are gonna be ranked at a 7 out of 10 or higher, meaning that they're above average. That puts you at about 34% of Grand Prairie schools being above average. Now, when we talked about, the size of Grand Prairie, and we talked about how that southern part is really very different than the northern part, well, if you take that southern part of Grand Prairie, you'll see that all of those schools score a 7 out of 10 or higher. All right, so we've got Grand Prairie. We know the whole thing, not super impressive, but that lower part has great scoring schools. Now, let's take that and let's compare that to Mansfield schools, okay? Mansfield schools, there are 23 public schools that are rated on greatschools.org. And of those 23, 20 are 7 out of 10 or higher. So yeah, you heard me right. 87% of Mansfield schools score above average or higher. And in fact, Frontier behind me scores a 10 out of 10. Now, if we were going to take and compare that, to some other schools you may have heard of, like Frisco ISD, they only score a 75% of above average schools, right? Or Allen, 76%. So here we have Mansfield on the southern part of town, beautiful country vibe, 87% score above average or more. So obviously, that blows Grand Prairie out of the water, okay? It also beats, Frisco, and it beats Allen and a ton of other schools. Okay, but in Grand Prairie's defense, I gotta tell you, Grand Prairie does have an open school district. And their schools which get the good ratings are really, really good. So Grand Prairie does have that to offer. So there is that. I wanted to make sure and point that out. Anyway, so yeah, overall summary, Grand Prairie has the lower schools overall, but it does have some great options of good schools. But Mansfield pretty much blows it out of the water with that 87%. All right, well, we're gonna wrap it up here and take a look at our next stop. I'll see you there. Well, we talked about education as our first comparison between Grand Prairie and Mansfield. And we saw that really between the two, Mansfield does come out ahead, although Grand Prairie does have that open school district to offer, right? Well, right now we are out here at the Mejia subdivision. I think I'm saying that right, I don't know. Anyway, to talk about choices, the second way we're going to compare Grand Prairie to Mansfield is we're going to talk about choices in housing, okay? So we're going to talk about the variety of housing between Grand Prairie and Mansfield and where you're going to have, better chances at finding what you're looking for, right? So I jumped on the MLS this morning and I found 92 homes for sale, active listings in Grand Prairie. Hey, of those homes, 10 were new construction, 46 were less than 350,000, and only 2 had acreage. Okay, so I did the same thing with Mansfield, right? And remember, Mansfield is half the size of Grand Prairie, right? In Mansfield, I found 107 active listings, right? So more than Grand Prairie. Remember, Grand Prairie only had 92. I saw 47 new construction. Of that 107, there were 47 new construction, right? So that tells you Mansfield's gonna have more in the way of new construction in the 350,000 price range. Less than that, Mansfield only had 12. So it kind of shows you that Grand Prairie is gonna have more affordable options for you. But Mansfield did have 12 homes with acreage. So, the home behind me is a great example of their homes with acreage. It's listed for $1.3 million. Absolutely gorgeous custom home, 6-bedroom, 5-bathroom, 3-car garage, 1.8 acres with beautiful woods. Oh my goodness, and all those mature trees. It's 6,397 square foot of beauty. And I'm sure you can see it there. The kitchen has 2 undermount sinks, granite countertops, commercial size refrigerator, 6-burner gas stove. So yeah, so that is an example of a home with acreage that you can find in Mansfield. Yeah, so overall, both Grand Prairie and Mansfield have a lot, 92 active listings in Grand Prairie, 107 in Mansfield. But if you want affordable, you're probably gonna need to look in Grand Prairie. But if you want new construction or acreage or just more choices in general, you're probably gonna choose Mansfield. Anyway, so hopefully that helps you with that housing choice. I'm gonna wrap it up here and then we're gonna head on over to our next stop. So let's go. We are out here at the shiny new retail center to talk about kind of a not so fun topic. Our third comparison between Grand Prairie and Mansfield is crime, right? We got to get into the crime. That's a fact of life here in the city, right? All right, well, again, we find ourselves in this area of comparing all of Grand Prairie to Mansfield or South Grand Prairie to Mansfield. We find a very different demographic depending on how we look at that. Now, most of South Grand Prairie is going to be new and shiny, just like where we are right now. This is a really neat new retail center. We are in Mansfield right now, but there are plenty of centers just like this in South Grand Prairie. But if we take Grand Prairie as a whole, and we look at, like, for example, neighborhoodscout.com, we're going to see that roughly many areas north of I-20 are going to be rated with a C, okay? Overall, the entire city, again, of Grand Prairie gets a D+ for a crime rating. Now, crime stats, okay? If you live north of I-20 in Grand Prairie, you have kind of a rough odds of being a victim of crime, like 1 in 18. But south of I-20, okay, those same statistics from Neighborhood Scout give you about a 1 in 65 chance of being a victim in crime. So you can see, again, just that huge difference in Grand Prairie, just kind of sketchy in terms of the different areas of crime. Now, if you were to take that, that rating of D+, that rating of C, and compare that to Mansfield as a whole, Mansfield crime is rated as an A-. And as you look through the city of Mansfield, neighborhood by neighborhood, you're gonna see ratings of like anywhere from an A+ to a B. So yeah, so overall, again, we see that all of Grand Prairie as a whole gonna have a higher crime rate than Mansfield as a whole, but just kind of keeping in mind that South Grand Prairie, lower in that crime rate, much more similar to Mansfield. Okay, well, hope that information was helpful. We're gonna wrap it up here. I'll show you a little bit of this new and shiny retail center, and then we're gonna head on over to our next comparison. So let's go. Well, how are we doing so far? You guys getting a good grasp of the differences between Grand Prairie and Mansfield? Well, right now we are out here at the Oak Hollow subdivision because I wanted to talk to you about our fourth comparison, which is Grand Prairie has a lower cost of living. Overall, it's more affordable. In fact, this home right here behind me, I'm going to show you, is listed for $285,000. Okay, that's a phenomenal price, especially in our current market. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-story home. The bedrooms are upstairs, open concept floor plan, completely updated. Yeah, for $285,000. In fact, in Grand Prairie, your median home price is $350,000, which means there are plenty of homes available below that price. Now, if you were to compare that to Mansfield, the median home price in Mansfield is $439,000. So yeah, I just wanted to see that, let you see that difference. The cost of living is a very big deal. And I think as we drive you through this neighborhood, you're gonna see this is a beautiful neighborhood full of well-maintained homes with a lower cost of living, more affordable. All right, well, listen, that wraps up our comparisons. We are gonna head on over to the park where we're gonna wrap up our tour. See you there. We are out here at Britton Park wrapping up our vlog tour, and I thought what better place to wrap it up here than Britton Park, because on land we're in Mansfield, but if I step right into the water, which by the way I am not going to do, but if I were to do that, we would be in Grand Prairie. So perfect place. Let me tell you a little bit about Britton Park. It's mainly used for boat launching, but they've got some great plans in the work. They're going to add a pavilion, and they're going to add a playground, and eventually they're even going to have some camping. So really neat place to wrap it up. So I hope this information was helpful, helping you to get a good comparison of Grand Prairie versus Mansfield. We saw that Grand Prairie twice as big, and as such, it's going to have more issues like with crime and maybe not as good in terms of schools because it's so much bigger, but we also almost kind of added in a third comparison, which was South Grand Prairie and Mansfield. Anyway, hope this was all helpful. If it was, the next best thing you can do, right, is to head on over to my channel. Check out a few more videos. You're gonna find well over 100 videos there for you to take a look at. In the meantime, listen, thank you so much for watching and have a great day.